let's have a look at a brief history of the English Premier League. Now, its foundations actually come from a meeting with a guy called Greg Dyke, who's actually quite TV executive at the time, and he's still involved in TV now and other bits and pieces. He actually was involved with the FA for a while as well. Greg Dyke was at that time, just after Italia 19, working for ITV. And he sat down with some club executives and was discussing an idea of a lucrative TV deal to show English top-flight football on domestic TV. One game a weekend, and it would vary between the clubs. But that meeting got things rolling. Now, the FA at the time had a bad working relationship with the clubs in the Football League. The FA was not getting on well with its constituent member clubs. There were issues. English football after '85 was banned from European football after the Hazel disaster. So we couldn't play in what became the Champions League, so the Cup Winners' Cup, and the Super Cup and things like that. We couldn't play in European competitions. The national side could, but the club sides couldn't. English football also was declining in revenues, attendances were down, stadiums were in a bad state of repair, hooliganism, all these issues were a problem. At the end of the 91-92 season, on the 27th of May, the Premier League Limited Company was formed. Now, the ITV were hoping to get the TV deal, okay? They didn't. Sky and BBC got it. And 22 clubs left and resigned from the Football League en masse, which scared the FA going, Christ, what's going on? And over that summer, it was declared that the FA would put their moniker, the FA Premier League, and that's what it would be. Now it's the Barclays Premier League, but at the time it was the FA were backing the Premier League to keep the peace. 22 clubs founded the Premier League, so 3 teams that got promoted, and the teams that had stayed in the old Division 1 from the season before went across and founded the Premier League. And this is how it goes. Arsenal, Aston Villa, Blackburn Rovers, Chelsea, Coventry City, what a fall they've had, Crystal Palace, Everton, Ipswich Town, Leeds United, what a fall from grace for them, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Middlesbrough, Norwich City, Nottingham Forest, they had a bit of a spell in League One, Oldham Athletic, they're League Two I believe now, Queen's Park Rangers, Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday, Southampton, Tottenham Hotspur, and the original AFC Wimbledon, which became NK Dons, and it also got reformed as Wimbledon. So some of the clubs in here have not had a good track record since the Premier League days. Blackburn now just getting promoted from League One, Coventry City in the playoff places in League Two, Leeds United ended up in League One at one point, Nottingham Forest ended up in League One at one point, Oldham Athletic I think are in League Two now, and Wimbledon, depends on your point of view, MK Dons got relegated to League Two, and AFC Wimbledon are staying in League One, so it's all as you were. There were 22 clubs founding. Now, after Blackburn won in 1995, the FA and the Premier League decided to reduce the size of the league to 20. Hence why League One, the Championship has 24 teams now. So 5 teams got relegated in 95, not 3. Now, there is no winter break in the Premier League as it currently stands. Also, the TV deal has grown year on year. So, on that aspect, the clubs are wealthier than they ever have been. They have more money than they ever have had. But looking at some of these clubs that have had money issues, the TV deal in the Premier League hasn't always been kind to them. Aston Villa not in the Premier League anymore. Blackburn Rovers just got promoted back to the Championship this season. Coventry City are in the playoff places in League Two. Ipswich Town are basically pretty stable between Championship and Premier League. Leeds United fell down to League One at one point after they got to the Champions League semi-final 17 years ago. You remember that? Manchester City had a yo-yo effect where they were going between the divisions. They dropped as low as what was now League One, the old Division 2. Middlesbrough have had a few wobbles. Norwich City have gone up and down. Nottingham Forest, the first team to win a Cup Winners' Cup, a European trophy, ended up in the third tier of their domestic league. Yeah. Oldham Athletic, they've only got 2.5 stands standing out at their stadium. They've run out of money. QPR have had a few issues. Sheffield United, Sheffield Wednesday. Wednesday have had more problems than United, but both have ended up in League One at various times in the last 26 years. And Southampton have been in League One at one point. They're now currently just fighting to stay in the Premier League. And Wimbledon. So half the teams on this list at some point have ended up in the third tier of English football out of the original 22. So the Premier League hasn't always been kind. When you get relegated out, it's very hard to get back in. And some of these clubs have, some of these clubs haven't. Some have been in and out several times. But let's look at the titles won, and this is where the surprises really start kicking in. People, especially younger fans, don't necessarily know the history of English football and the amount of trophies won by clubs and who won these trophies when. Blackburn have got one title of the Premier League to their name. Leicester City, obviously recent memory, a couple of years ago, lifted the trophy. Arsenal have got 3 titles. Only 3. Some people think they had more under Wenger. They really didn't. They only had 3 under Wenger. Manchester City have only got the 3 titles as well. Chelsea have only got 5. Manchester United, however, have 13. Now, there's some notable teams that haven't won a title, like Liverpool and Everton, Spurs, Southampton. They have not lifted the title. But these teams have. Only 6 teams have managed to get their hands on silverware, and half the titles have been won by Manchester United. There is no winter break, as I said. Now, this is crucial because the early days of the Premier League were actually, the England side was very, very good. After 92, there was a bad Euros. That was the old guard getting a little bit old, and loads of fresh faces were coming through, such as your Gareth Southgate, your David Beckhams. There's a few others, Graham Lasso, Batty, some of the Manchester United players, there you go, Lee Sharp, things like that. These players were coming through, Tim Sherwood. And then 1994 happens, we don't qualify because it's a rebuild for the England national side. But then in 96, we host Euro 96, partly because we had formed the Premier League, which was one of the reasons why we got the Euros in 96. But we got the European Championships. And we got the semi-final. And yeah, Gareth Southgate missed that penalty and cried, that horrible blue away kit, Jesus. But we had a very good tournament. And it brought a new lease of life to English football at the time. And then, Euro 2000 wasn't as good. Then, 2002, okay, we struggled to qualify for Japan and Korea. 2006, Wayne Rooney gets sent off. 2004 in the Euros, Wayne Rooney breaks a foot, that kind of thing. And that golden generation started. You could say now the Premier League is probably bad for the English national side. If we haven't got enough experienced players who've not retired from international, but willing to put their hand up and say, select me. The young players aren't fringe players, really, a lot of their clubs. So they're not getting the game time, they're not getting the first team experience, they're struggling to get established in their sides. So going forward, we have a very unknown package of national side, but the last couple of tournaments we've been very, very poor. And people are arguing about this winter break and the amount of foreign players, and you look at the German league, the French league, the Italian league, the Spanish league, and how their percentage of homegrown talent is higher on any given league matchday weekend compared to England. We rank very lowly when it comes to national talent playing in domestic leagues for percentage-wise. That's a problem that English football's had now for about 10, 15 years. So the early days of the Premier League, a lot of English players, and as time goes on, more and more foreign signings come in. Because when the Premier League was first started up, a lot of English players were playing in Europe. And that happened until about 2000. A lot of English players were playing in Europe at various levels. They were playing outside of the UK. And as time's gone on, less and less English players playing abroad. At the moment, I think only a couple that I can think of are playing anywhere in Europe, in any league. Most of them are playing back here, but there's not enough spaces in the first team rosters for English players to break through. Is it because they're not good enough, or is it because there's too many foreign players and they're getting strangled out of first team football and they're stuck on the bench a lot? So that's an issue, is the foreign influx. Now, the 6 Premier League champions, the teams that have won the Premier League, at the time the league was formed, and Leicester weren't even in the Premier League when the league was formed, the other teams all were. Blackburn, 27th of May 92, Jack Walker owned the club. Leicester, I believe, was owned by a British family. Arsenal, English. Man City, at the time of formation of the league, English. Chelsea, Ken Bates. Man United, I forget who owned Man United, but all English owned. Now, Blackburn, owned by the Venkies, Indian. Leicester City, owned by, I believe, a Thai investors. Arsenal, American Stan Kroenke, and I believe Asimov, who's a Russian, so it's a mixed ownership at Arsenal, but it's all foreign. Manchester City, Sheikh Mansour, UAE. Chelsea, Abramovich, Russia, Manchester United, Glazers, America. So the 6 teams that have actually lifted the title at least once, all of them are foreign owned now. Now I could go through the list here and I could find most of them foreign owned. That's pretty damning. That, okay, the money's now in there and owners of these clubs have sold out. And with the TV deal growing year on year, they could have made themselves exceptionally wealthy and pumped that money back in directly. Instead, they sold out and haven't pumped the money back in to English football. That's the issue. How much foreign investment is needed before it becomes too much, and we're selling too much of our footballing structures to foreigners, including England in the Championship, League One and League Two. A lot of clubs are now getting foreign owned as well. It's a thing. The amount of foreign players playing in the Premier League, yes, it is a very competitive league to play, and it's great fun. Whether it's the highest standard is another thing, but it is exceptionally fun and very competitive to watch. It's a different style of play. Not all foreign players can cope with the physicality and the pace of it. But the lack of a winter break is telling. So those players that are Premier League based, if they struggle in the World Cup, that question is going to keep coming up. Now they are voting for a provisional winter break at some point either next season or the season after. There are some discussions. I'm not sure if they've passed it as a resolution yet within the FA and the Premier League, but the winter break may come about for all professional leagues in England. We may get a winter break for Premier League, Championship, League One and League Two. We may eventually get that winter break. The Germans are doing it for years. The French, years. The Italians, years. The Spanish, years. All the European leagues have been having winter or summer breaks depending on how their league is done due to weather conditions for years. I don't know why it's taken this long for English football to go. We might need a week or two off at some point during the winter just to give these players a break. I mean, I find it interesting they don't. But yeah, that's my little brief history in the Premier League. I could do clubs now versus club then. I mean, but the league was a different size when it was first formed. The TV deal that ITV wanted, they didn't get, and they only briefly had the Premier League highlights for about a couple of seasons, and they lost that TV rights deal anyway. They briefly had the TV rights in about 2001 to 2003, 2004, and it didn't attract nearly as many viewers as Match of the Day. But they kept the Champions League deal until BT Sport ruined that for everyone. So as compensation for not getting that TV rights, ITV got the Champions League from inception, which is about the same time. The Champions League was formed in '92 as well. So the ITV got the TV rights to host that in this country, along with Sky, where BBC got the FA Cup, League Cup, and Premier League highlights. And that's roughly how it stayed for the majority of the time. ITV have had a couple of bids in there for football rights, and occasionally they now have the England national sides, they have qualifiers for the Euros. BBC still has rights to show the World Cup and Euros alongside ITV. Sky still has rights in the Premier League and not Champions League anymore. BT have got that now. And that's basically how it's gone. The rights have got bigger, so more channels are buying in. Channel 5 have now got the highlights packages for the Championship, League 1 and League 2. So more broadcasters are buying in to English football and showing games or showing highlights. And as time goes on, I do honestly believe this current TV deal coming up where they haven't sold all the games yet, Channel 5 or BBC, or as a joint venture, may go in there and pick up, I think it's 48 games that went unsold. So I wouldn't be surprised if free-to-air TV gets its hands on a few Premier League games. Maybe not the good ones like your Bournemouth, Southampton maybe, but it gets its hand on Premier League football rights and can show them. Because it then shows there's more of an interest in more of a market, not just a monopoly. It's a competitive market. And as we'll see what holds the future and go from there. That's my little brief history of the Premier League. I could do some of the teams that have had one season wonders in the Premier League, like Swindon Town, for example, but we will be here for a long time. But look at the notable exceptions from that founding list. There's no Sunderland. There's no Newcastle United on that list. Some big teams were not good enough to break away from the Football League in '92. So this is what we had. What it's become is debatable whether it's good or bad, or a bit of both. But at that time, this saved English football from years of decline. This move in '92 saved English football. at the time. Whether it's saving it now is another thing, and whether we can discuss has it gone too far in the player wages, the lack of a salary cap, the rising ticket prices, and all that is another question. But it makes so much money; it's an economy unto itself. Um, but some of these clubs that are on this original list have had so many financial difficulties. It's unreal. But thank you very much for watching. It's been an honour and a pleasure. Please like, subscribe, place your comments below. So if you are a Premier League fan or you like English football and you're not from the UK, what club do you support? Place it in the comments below, and I'll have some more videos for you soon.